question of what's come to be called the alleged bagman in the Cam Newton recruitment to Auburn. Last night, Newton in his third preseason game for the Carolina Panthers looking less than effective. He was 6 of 19 passing, 49 yards running the ball. Newton, though, he's moved on. The NCAA apparently has not, and neither has the blood-boiling emotion of whether anything improper had induced Newton to play at Auburn after his father had shot into Mississippi State with a 6-figure price tag. USA Today sports analyst Danny Sheridan, in several recent appearances on the Paul Finebaum radio program, talked of knowing who, he says, paid Cecil Newton, Cam's father, to bring the quarterback to play at Auburn.
So I ask you pretty quickly, have you been told the name of the person the NCAA feels paid Cam Newton?
Unequivocally, yes, I have, Paul.
Would you please give us that name?
No, sir, I will not give you the name.
Well, you said you were going to come back on this program, Danny, and share that information with us.
No, I did say that I would come back on the program, and as your tape said, I said I may not give the name after talking with counsel, Mr. Vince Kilburn. He informed me that if I gave the name, which I definitely have the name, but if I gave it, I would be sued, and he told me that truth is the best defense in a libel suit. That sounded great so far. He said I would then be subjected to sworn depositions where I would have to give up all my sources, all my names, and what would happen would be if I did that, Paul, they would lose their job, their careers would be ruined, and I'm not going to do that.
That exchange was 9 days ago on the radio. We are joined today live by Danny Sheridan, sports analyst for USA Today, and also Paul Finebaum. You hear his program on Sirius XM Radio. Good to have you both here and to talk about this. Danny, let me first bring up the term bagman. I've seen it online and in headlines and in second and third references. Have you ever employed that phrase in discussing this?
I didn't hear your question, Bob. You said about bagman.
Have you employed that phrase? Have you used that phrase at any point?
Yes, I've used that phrase. I apologize for it, but when you deliver money to someone, that's the only phrase I know to describe that transaction.
I'm always a little skittish asking somebody to talk about the sourcing of a story, especially when we're doing it publicly. But this is something, that somebody has told you? This is not something you have firsthand knowledge of? Is that correct?
I do not have firsthand knowledge except to say that people that are this is what the NCAA knows. They allegedly know who the person is that paid Cam Newton. They're pursuing that. They have a witness. Whether the witness will talk, I have no idea. I know the person's name that they allege paid Cecil Newton. That's all I know, and I know where to find the witness, but I have no idea if he's going to talk or if he's not going to talk.
Paul, this is a conversation you and Danny have been having over several appearances. I guess you have a chance to continue it today. But what is your take on both where this is at in terms of Auburn and Newton and any allegations of money, and just the fact that this phrase bagman and this allegation has been out there for the last several weeks?
I think the bagman phrase, Bob, got everyone's attention, and I take it very seriously because I thought this investigation was running amok, and Danny came on a couple of months ago, and then Pete Thamel of the New York Times backed it up in this exchange between Gene Chizik and Julie Roe-Lash, the NCAA enforcement director at the SEC Media Day. So I think people down here are riveted by what Danny Sheridan has said, and I've known Danny 20 years. He has a great deal of credibility, and I believe, this is my opinion, Danny can answer it himself, I believe his source is firmly entrenched in the NCAA headquarters building in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Care to comment on that?
He's correct. That is one of my sources, and that's been a source, retired NCAA personnel, and I do know people inside the NCAA, and they have shared that information, and that's who I asked, and I was given an answer, and I confirmed that I do know the name of the person that they think paid Cecil Newton a lot of money.
You've opened the door on this, so I'm going to walk through a little bit. How confident is your source that they can pin this down? They don't have subpoena power. We just heard in the discussion of what's going on in Miami, they just can't take the Yahoo Sports material in that case. But how confident does your source or your sources feel that they can pin this down?
They're not confident, Bob, because you made a great point. If someone, Lakes, doesn't talk in the Southern Cal case, there's no case. If someone doesn't talk in the Miami case, there's no case. You have no subpoena power. I personally do not think this witness will testify for fear of financial retribution.
Okay, now that opens the door in a whole nother issue, and email and Twitter has been a fluff with this, if I can. I believe you're a Bama alum, right? Danny, is that the case?
I attended Alabama some 30 or 40 years ago, but don't hold that against me.
I'm not, but...
Let me say this, Bob. That has nothing to do with this story.
I understand that, but I want to give you a chance just to talk about that right here, because this is so emotional. It's SEC, it's Auburn, it's Bama, and there are people that are looking at that and saying, here's the agenda. Especially if this never becomes a public name.
Well, I don't know if it's become a public name, but your people at ESPN are aware that I've known many stories recently. Tennessee 9 months in advance, Southern Cal in advance, Miami in advance, Ohio State in advance. I just didn't say anything publicly. When Paul asked me to verify the story, I did. I'm sorry I did in hindsight, but I'm telling the truth. I don't care whether I went to Alabama. That means absolutely nothing. It's credibility. I'm telling the truth. I offer to take a polygraph test. I'll take as many as you want. I'm telling the truth. And if people don't like that, I can't help it.
Get a taste of emotion there, Paul. Describe the emotions around this entire topic in SEC country.
It won't go away. We're a week away from the first game, and everywhere I go, I hear people talk about the bagman. And I don't think, not to defend, Danny doesn't need me to defend him, Bob, but where he went to school is not the issue here. The issue is whether Auburn bought Cam Newton, and a lot of people down here still think they did.
You think we'll ever get to the bottom of this, Paul?
I'm not sure, Bob. I'd love to say I think we will, but right now I don't think we will in the end. This is a very unsatisfactory investigation, and I think the fact the NCAA still is keeping it open, and Mark Emmert a week ago didn't close the door, I think means they want to get to the bottom of it, but I don't think they will.
What's at stake here in the big picture?
Well, I think a lot's at stake because I think a lot of people around college athletics believe Auburn has a tainted BCS national championship. Of course, that may not be shocking when you consider what we're talking about prior to our appearance here, but it bothers a lot of people. A lot of people think Cam Newton was paid to go to Auburn. Not proven yet, of course, but the fact that so many things have gone against Auburn. Remember something, Bob. The SEC coaches voted for Steve Spurrier to be the SEC Coach of the Year, even though he lost twice to Auburn University. The SEC athletic directors voted for a tennis player from Tennessee, whose name escapes me at the moment, to be SEC Athlete of the Year over Cam Newton. That, to me, says a great deal.
All right. Danny, I appreciate you coming aboard and talking to us about it today. It's evidently something that stirred up a great deal of interest and as much emotion in SEC country. And Paul, always a pleasure to talk college football and things in the South and SEC country with you. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob.
Bye-bye.
Outside the Lines.